So for January 18th, it's all about being, being you, being what somebody else tells you to be, being empty of yourself and completely somebody else. How do we simply just be in the world? Hi, I'm Candy. I'm a hypnotherapist who's deconstructing from evangelical Christianity, and I know how mindset shapes our behavior. So in this series, I'm going to share my daily reflections from 3 different devotionals. The Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo, and that one's a little more spiritual, non-religious. Also, Jesus Calling by Sarah Young, which is a very modern Christian approach. And My Utmost for His Highest by Oswald Chambers, which is a very classic Christian angle. My goal is to help you see how each one of these devotionals or these day books might shape your mindset a little differently. And if you're into that kind of reflection, please like and follow for more. Let's get started. For January 18th in the Book of Awakening, Mark tells a story about a sage and a spider. So the sage goes out into the water waist deep and sees a spider floating on his back, legs scrambling, up in the air like it's drowning. So he cups his hand around the spider and goes to lift it out, and the spider bites him. And this happens several days in a row. And eventually the spider says, "Why do you keep pulling me out? Don't you get the hint? I keep biting you." And the sage is like, "This is just my nature. My nature is to be kind. If I see somebody suffering, my nature is to desire to help them if I can." And so the point of the story is that being kind is simply what we do as spiritual beings. As those who are spiritually awakened, we are kind. We want to bring relief to the suffering, those who are suffering. So if someone truly needs us, we're there if we can be. And sometimes that means we get bit. And some will say, "Well, you're just foolish. You don't learn. You keep, showing empathy." But we don't need to let someone change us, change who we are, because we get bit sometimes. That's part of the journey, is being true to who you are. Like, my nature is to help somebody if they're hurting. I have people in my life who have really wronged me, and I just can't hold a grudge. I have no desire to hold a grudge. I've never, even when I was an evangelical, I didn't hold grudges, just because it's not in my nature to do that. I can be upset for a while, but eventually it just fades. I don't, and I think that's a good thing, because it keeps me from getting bitter, because I think when we hold grudges, it hurts us more than it does anything to the other person. And that doesn't mean I forget what they've done. I don't forget. Like, I'm wise, but I'm not going to hurt them back, and I'm not going to desire for them to hurt. I'm going to desire that they might come to an understanding of how they're treating people and do better. But me retaliating or not helping them doesn't do anything. It just basically makes you become like that what you don't like in them. So I heard a quote one time where someone said, "Be careful of the anger that you hold, because eventually it will turn you into the person who gave it to you." And I thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah, when we hold on to it, we can become like the traits that we don't like maybe seeing reflected at us. And it takes awareness to keep you from doing that, because otherwise you will naturally, "Oh, they treat me bad. Well, I'm going to treat them bad back, or I'm going to ignore them." And that doesn't mean I go out of my way to help them. But if they ask me for help, I'm there. I will help them. If I see them and I see that they're in dire need and I can meet their need, I'm going to do it. And that's just who I am. I can see this one causing trouble a little bit for people pleasers. I am a recovered people pleaser. Recovering, I guess I still struggle with it from time to time. So I can see how this could cause some problems. So what I tend to do for myself is ask myself, what's my motive in helping? Is it to be seen? Is it for them to say, "Oh, you were right all along. I'm so sorry." If I'm doing it for them to feel vindication, for them to finally admit that they were wrong and I was right, then that's poor motivation and I won't do it. But if I'm doing it because I genuinely care, then I'm going to do it. So I guess my addition to what Mark says is check your motivation. Why are you doing it? Are you doing it because you think you're the only one that can save them? Do you have this savior complex? Or is it simply because they have a need and you can meet it and that's the type of person you are? So in Jesus calling, the message is kind of, instead of being you, you need to be dependent. So your path has a lot of highs and lows, and Jesus is leading you on the high road, but you're going to go up and down, and you want to reach the end point, but you can't take a shortcut there. You have to just trust that Jesus is in charge of each step, and that when you have troubles, like the blessings, you need to remember that the blessings outweigh the troubles. So the good times outweigh the bad times, I guess. And that trust is like just a chance to, or that those trials are just a chance to trust even more. Um, this one is, it can bring peace. I'm not going to knock that it can bring peace to trust in something bigger than yourself. Of course it can. And, but putting trust in Jesus is just so strange now when you're outside of it, because the idea of Jesus depends on who you've been taught Jesus is, or who you've made up in your mind who Jesus is. Now, they say he's loving, but also there's a harshness. There's in his justice, like to punish somebody for eternity, for 80 years of living, is not just. It's kind of cruel. To punish somebody for not believing in you is cruel. Um, this isn't something little like Santa. If you don't believe in Santa, you're going to get coal in your stocking. If you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to be tortured for eternity. That's who we've been taught Jesus is. Now, I don't think any of that is who Jesus actually was, but I think that the idea of Jesus is so subjective, and this causes a lot of issues. So for me, when I was evangelical, I believed Jesus was loving and he was kind and he was good. But I also had the underlying teachings of, you're going to go to hell if you don't believe right. You're going to be punished by God if you don't act right, if you don't try to follow the rules. And I don't even know what all the rules are. There's so many of them. And, um, striving to be perfect, whatever that meant. And so this still gives me I feel a tightness in my chest, kind of like it's focus on Jesus. Well, what am I supposed to do? What does that mean? Think about Jesus, what he's done. And then I'm not thinking about like, it just creates this lazy thinking. I don't know any other way to say it than it creates this lazy thinking. I'm just going to trust that God's going to take care of it. And I'm not going to really think about what my options are. At least that's how I saw it play out in Christianity a lot of times. Just this dismissiveness of when someone is really in need and they have an issue. I would see leaders or my own father say, you just need to pray about it. And that doesn't solve the problem. It's just, all you're saying is, I don't want to help you work through this. And so you don't learn from your leaders or from your parents or from your teachers how to work through issues, how to find the options that are in front of you, how to be open to that. Instead, you just trust that something's going to fix it. And sometimes you don't even see the opportunities right in front of you because you're waiting for it to look a certain way, a supernatural way, rather than, this is real practical. It's right in front of you. It's obvious, but you don't take it because you want something supernatural to happen. So that's my problem with this message here. And that's how I would read it if I was evangelical. And in my utmost for his highest, basically, the message is be empty. Be empty of yourself. Pour out your life for God in complete devotion. Now, what this looks like can get maddening for people. Does that mean being at church every time it's open? Does that mean talking constantly, incessantly about God, never being able to talk about real practical things right in front of you without just head in the sky talking about, Jesus coming back or what? It just gets crazy. So this to me would just be could almost make me go mad. I'm not joking. So he also just says, don't just expect Jesus to be giving to you. Like, you need to give to him. And I'm like, what? And I remember that. Give everything back to God. Or even they would say in heaven, he's going to give you crowns so that you can give it back to him, throw it back at his feet. Now, this is just insane. Why would somebody who's all powerful, yet all loving and all good, give you something and then expect you to give it back to him? That's crazy. I don't ever give something and expect somebody to give it back to me. If I give you something, I hope that you enjoy it. You don't even have to, you can do whatever you want with it. You can pass it along to somebody else if that's what you want, but it's yours. It's not mine anymore. And if you're giving just to get back, is that really giving? I mean, nobody likes that. When someone gives a gift to you and they deep down are expecting one in return, that's a pressure. That's a pressure. And sometimes it's just better, like you kind of say, just let's not do gifts because I just don't want the pressure. Well, and another thing he says is we don't just do for God, you exist solely as a witness for him. That's how you be, is you just be for God. And what that would look like, it could vary from person to person. But as an evangelical, in the evangelical mindset, I would have said, I need to be talking about God. I need to be thinking about God. Everything I action needs to be godly. And that's impractical. And if it is done, it could almost cause religious psychosis, I think. That's my opinion. So you got the 3 books. The first one is about just being you. And I could see some frustration with that one. You have to really know who you are. You have to really check your motives. So he didn't really go into that, but as a recovering people pleaser, I would say check your motives. Is it really who you are, or are you trying to manipulate a situation due to programming in order to feel safe? So sometimes we try to pacify people or make them more comfortable, even if it puts us in a very uncomfortable state, because it makes us feel safe, because that's what we've been taught to do, is probably we managed our parents' emotions. So you got being yourself, regardless of how others react to it. And obviously yourself is good at the core. I'm not talking about someone being harmful to others, because that's not who we really are at the core. That's someone operating under some sort of conditioning, or there's physically something wrong with their mind or brain or something. So the other one, Jesus calling, is just be dependent, be completely dependent on Jesus. And this is so subjective, because we don't know necessarily what the person is thinking of when they hear the word Jesus. Trust Jesus. Is he good and loving to all, or is he just good and loving to me when I'm obeying and when I'm doing what he likes? And that one can get messy. And then the third one, my utmost for his highest, is about just get rid of your own desires whatsoever. You are here as a vessel to just be for God. Just talk about God, be about God. That's all you are here for. Just get rid of the idea of you having passions or dreams or hobbies. It's focus on Jesus 24/7. And that is maddening. So do what you will with these, and have a great day. Remember, you get to decide what you devote your thinking to today. You might not be able to control every thought that comes in, but you can definitely decide what you entertain. And whether it comes from something I've said today or something completely different, choose wisely and set an intention that truly benefits you and those around you. And if you found any value here today, don't forget to like and follow. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and let's keep our minds on what helps us love ourselves and each other a little bit better every day.